The Sonic Matrix Part 1, The Sega Sonic Myth. Well, here we go. Once again I need to write an article to put an end to a terrible lie. The myth of Sega Sonic. Sega Sonic by definition, anything that relates to the quote true unquote characters, stories, names, and contents of games made by Sonic Team. Anything outside of this is considered to be non-Sega Sonic. Problem with that logic is all Sonic-based games, etc. were run through Sonic Team at one point or another. Let's have a look. Quote, Sonic was a Japanese-made product, unquote. Because he was made by Japanese people? Sorry, but it was developed in the United States by Japanese people. If a game coming out of Japan was made by an all-American team, it wouldn't be considered an American game. Quote, Dr. Eggman came first, unquote. Incorrect. June 23, 1991, Dr. Robotnik makes his debut in the USA version of Sonic the Hedgehog for the Sega Genesis. Later that month, Europe met Dr. Robotnik for the first time. July 26, 1991, Dr. Eggman makes his Japanese debut in the Jap version of Sonic the Hedgehog for the Sega Mega Drive. Dr. Robotnik's name was used for over a month before the world even heard the name Eggman. This is due to the need to localize a product for its area. Eventually, through the years, he has gained both names as both sides of the seas merged and began to adopt the others, so in all reality there is no difference between the two of them. Quote, but Eggman and Robotnik look different, unquote. So, they're still exactly the same, let me show you. Robotnik number 1, fat, round, in his classic outfit. This is the type commonly referred to as Sega Sonic. Robotnik number 2, fat, cone-head-shaped guy in a much more flamboyantly gay outfit. This is the type commonly referred to as Satam after the Saturday morning cartoon style. Both of these are the same character, they are just different styles of artwork. The top one is known as the Japanese character style, JCS, and the bottom is known as the American character style, ACS. There are not artistic differences between Eggman and Robotnik, only styles. In the same argument, if one were to say that the American style was non-Sega Sonic, then the newer Sonic Adventure style or International Character Style, ICS, is non-Sega Sonic as well, so that argument is faulty. Through the last few years, the differences have been split apart to two directly fan-made genres, the Sega Sonic / non-Sega Sonic groups, mostly due to ignorance among communities based around fanfiction. Due to the confusing separations between the characters, stories, and artwork, which goes into the Archie comics. Cartoon / comic characters from the ACS. These characters were developed to help increase the depth of the cartoons and comics. The ACS products were developed in cooperation of Sega of America, SOA. SOA owns the Sonic name on the American shores and have to protect its interests. In order to protect it, they must first run it past the people who created the concept and storylines. The Sonic Team. The Sonic Team had their stamp of approval on the Archie comics, the cartoon series, and the Sonic software titles not developed by them, so that argument is faulty. Software titles. Sonic Spinball, developed by STI with the cartoon / comic ACS. Approved and forwarded by Sonic Team under the condition that it didn't interfere with the Sonic storyline. It didn't interfere with it, so the project was forwarded. Other Sonic-based games followed suit, so the argument that Sonic games developed outside of the Sonic Team house are not involved in the Sonic universe is faulty. So what's the point of this article? To put an end or at least announce publicly that the concept of the term Sega Sonic is false, and created in a fan-based environment in order to make the individuals who support this fake term seem like they are in an elitist group. This term was developed by taking the Japanese phrasing of Sega Sonic, which is / was a form of nickname for Sonic, and using it incorrectly for Japanese obsessive people to separate themselves into their own classification. This is nothing more than an unresearched falsity, and this article was developed to explain why. Now, I don't expect this term to vanish at all, but hopefully there are a few non-otaku obsessed people out there who will actually read this fully and realize the truth of the matter. Part 2, Mobius. Mobius, the myth, the legend, the reality. This is an article which I'm writing to put an end to the age-old Mobius argument that plagues the internet community like oh so much stale cheese, because that's what this argument is. It's stale, it's old, and no one is right. Let me take you back. The year is 1985. The game industry up until this point was mainly American, and almost every game was made entirely from one person. The industry had a bad crash due to the fact that Atari, the giant monopoly, had been putting out nothing but complete and utter for close to 4 years. People just weren't interested anymore. At this time, a not-so-new company decided to come out with its system in America. This company was Nintendo. Nintendo had been producing games for Atari for years, as was another company called Sega. Nintendo and Sega had their systems out by 1986, but Nintendo had a year's head start and locked developers into nasty contracts. This caused Sega to have an even lower grip on the market. So in 1988 to 89, they released their system, the Mega Drive/Genesis, almost 2 years before the SNES was released. Based on Sega's long-standing stranglehold on the arcade market, they built a lower-scale version of some of their more popular arcade PCBs and released many ported arcade games to the home market. This drove a serious wedge into the heart of the massive giant Nintendo. But the company lacked a mascot, so they had many meetings, many ideas, and eventually settled on a little blue hedgehog we call Sonic. The problem was, the larger chunk of the game market was in America. The majority of developers were in Japan, so they needed to make this character universally appealing to the mass market. So with the help of upcoming programming talent Yuji Naka and some of their best and brightest, they made the first Sonic game. When are you going to get to the point? I'm taking my time. With this massive multicultural gaming market, they had to go after what people wanted then. Pretty graphics and fun gameplay, but they also had to find a way to market it to the world. Because a lot of games just don't work in certain areas, that's why we never saw dating sims on US shores while hundreds were made in Japan. So it was an easy solution. They created the game with no identifying characteristics. Not once in the early Sonic games do you see them talk, have a storyline pop up, or ever hear the characters' names. That's because without them in the game, they could write anything they felt like writing into the storyline without it conflicting with the game. It seemed like a good idea, but it backfired. You see, in the early 90s, there wasn't an internet like we have now. There wasn't such an otaku craze, and not everyone was trying to pretend they were Japanese. So it was much easier to create a storyline for the game on different shores without fans conflicting. And this went on for years and years. When the internet popped up and the online obsession of, quote, Japanese equals truth, unquote, took hold, the confusion grew greater, so the Mobius argument was founded. Now, personally, I could give a less what anyone calls anything. The point of this is to show you the reality of the situation, and that reality is, Sonic has no storyline. It was built to be a generic series of games which could then be remarked on all shores with storylines and names and artwork specifically designed to appeal to the market of that country. This can also be applied to the Robotnik vs. Eggman debate, the name of the Sonic robots and what other various characters' names are. Let's review. Mobius claimed to be the home planet of Sonic through the license permission of SOA. SOA did not create these characters or names, however they did approve them. Earth claimed to be the location of Sonic and Company and Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, also the place Sonic and crew end up in Sonic X after being transported there. Planet Freedom claimed to be the location of Sonic and Co. in the Sonic anime movie. Unknown, the place where Sonic starts in Sonic X. So the answer to Sonic's home planet or location is simple. He has none. A single storyline was never made, so it's not possible for either side of the argument to be correct. So please, next time you think about partaking in this argument, remember this article. That goes for the Sonic on Mobius people, as well as the Mobius is just a fake SOA crap people. Neither of you are correct, neither of you will ever get the last word, and neither of you will ever prove the other wrong. All you're ever going to do is draw on this long, outdated, and lame conflict that has no winning side. If you see this argument taking place or get involved in it, just paste this URL into the conflict. Hopefully in time, reason and good judgment will take hold. Part 3. The lack of storyline. Many people claimed many different things about Sonic's storyline. Some still claim to this day that he lives in a place called Knothold Village. Others live and die by the game's storyline in the manuals. Others are addicted to the Japanese storyline. This article is to disestablish all of them. The first thing people need to realize before establishing what is true is who actually created Sonic the Hedgehog. And by created, we have a few different aspects. We have the creators of the idea, the creators of the storylines, the creator/programmer of the games, and many others. Let's start at the beginning. Game creation/programming, Yuji Naka. If you don't know that, you're obviously in no condition to read this. But if you do know who the man is, you'll know he's the programmer of the early Sonic titles, and the man behind many of the current ones. However, it wasn't until the later games that he actually had input. He in no way wrote a storyline or any aspects of the Blue Hedgehog in any way, shape, or form. In fact, none of the Sonic team did. Not a single member of the development team had one word in the process, because the entire process of creating a storyline was up to the executives who were trying to make Sonic a huge selling point. All the Sonic team could do was make suggestions. It was actually Yuji Naka who mentioned the Hedgehog to begin with. With this idea sprouted up, Sega executives let this unnamed development team begin this unnamed project. The character codenamed Mr. Needlemouse was sent to Sega of America SOA, who contributed their input. The two sides of the ocean worked hard on keeping this project very neutral in storyline aspect, because they knew that they could easily tell people whatever they wanted to tell them, and within a limited amount of time the game was programmed and Sonic was born. Here is one of the very first pieces of artwork by Naoto Ashima. From that point on, the Blue Wonder became an instant hit on both shores thanks to clever marketing. Clever marketing was easy, as they could say just about anything about the game and people would take it for truth. On the US shores, Sonic was a hit, and suddenly he became bigger than Mario. He was on everything, lunchboxes, t-shirts, and had his very own cartoon and comic, which added fuel to the fire later on in the fanbase. The cartoon took many liberties, and so did the comics. The creators of the two confused the hell out of the Sonic fanbase, causing a lot of issues for fans later on as they tried to figure out what the real storyline is. Little that they knew, Japan was having the same problem. By this time, Sonic 1 and 2 were both out, Sonic CD and Sonic Spinball were released. More confusion came out of this, because it added 2 more storylines, plus it added the Sally/Amy debate that was settled years later when they just decided to ignore it. Japan had started receiving word of the 3 American storylines and began becoming confused with their 2 storylines, the ones presented with the Sonic Team games and the ones presented with the STI games. They began not to care, which caused a flooding of the 5 storylines to become mixed there. Still to this day, if you ask a Japanese Sonic fan about the storyline, they'll be unsure as to what is real. The problem is, all of the storylines were real because if one of them was fake, they all were, because each source of one of the storylines was an official source, and there was no central storyline. Sonic Team was not involved with the storyline of a game up until Nights, which was after Sega quit supporting the Genesis/Mega Drive. The most they put in was who they wanted to work on the games and minor input to the details of the games. Not only that, but a higher percentage of the Sonic games were not produced by the Sonic Team at all. It was due to the fact that no storyline was allowed to be put directly into the games, as it was too easy to write the story outside of it. Nowadays, Sonic Team is much larger and more established as a Sega development team. They make their storylines, concepts, and just about everything on their own. But they're now stuck with a game series which was so butchered with multiple storylines that they're forced to write new storylines to try to combine all of them. Not an easy task, but they're slowly starting to get it right. Final word, I was forced to write this as the purely otaku Sonic fanbase has a habit of spitting lies and mistruths to protect their ideal storyline. The Japanese one, of course. The truth is and always will be the fact that the Sonic series has no storyline, and no matter how much it's repaired to become a sellable series of games, it will always have the haunting memories of its multiple stories, and not a single one of them, and that includes the Japanese storyline, will ever be, quote, true, unquote.